Oh boy, there's quite a bit to talk about here. This is my spoiler talk for Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. I don't think this is really a formal review. So if you want to see my review of Vrains, I'll link that at the end of this video. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of the crazy stuff that happened this season. This is, if it wasn't already apparent from the title of this video and the introduction here, this is a spoiler video. So if you do not want to be spoiled for the events of Season 2 Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, which is episode 47 to episode 102, then you want to click off right here. Okay, so we're going to start off with Go, who actually had a very surprising change this season and sort of this antagonist role. It's really interesting reflection. I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything mentioned this on how interesting the arcs are between Aoi Zaizen and Go, because Aoi Zaizen's a character who, even after she loses, she sort of learns from her mistakes and is able to grow for the better. We see this also through the season 2 in her change from Blue Angel to Blue Girl to Blue Maiden with the character of Blue Maiden. I really do. It's an unpopular opinion, but I really do like Blue Maiden's design. I do feel we sort of see Aoi's maturity growing throughout this season, with Blue Angel sort of being more of a mask sort of thing, and then Blue Maiden sort of when she sort of embraces herself sort of thing. However, Go is someone who's like very obsessed with sort of not losing, and him losing to Revolver at the end of last season really did and also his loss as a playmaker really did a number on him. So he's now like super obsessed with winning against playmaker, and he does some pretty messed up things this season. Which, you have the introduction of the Ignises too. You have Earth, who was savagely killed off by Queen, probably one of the saddest death scenes in this series so far. You have Wendy, who was at the start of the season, who he was sort of in this role as this mysterious new helper, but it turned out that he was actually one of the bad guys all along, which was a twist that was one that I guess you could say was pretty unexpected. There's also the introduction of Lightning, who is at this point one of the most hated antagonists in Yu-Gi-Oh! History, and he is just a whole other level of evil. This guy was like so petty about being the only Ignis to not being able to coexist with humans, that he pretty much sabotaged everyone else and started this sort of and he masked his god complex with an inferiority complex and was behind so many events, especially the death of Revolver's father. There was, Lightning is just one evil dude. He's also the only major antagonist in Yu-Gi-Oh! To not lose a duel, and he dueled 3 times. He beat he beat Blood Shepherd. He beat Spectre, and then he tied with Revolver. And yes, I'm counting that duel as a tie. Even though, if we're going to be technical, Lightning did take the L on that duel. That duel is just Revolver just smacking around Lightning with information and sort of exposing Lightning who at this point kind of viewed himself as sort of on this high like stool, like God looking down at man sort of thing, and then Revolver just smacked him down to earth. That entire duel, that was one of my favorite duels, especially since a lot of us who were watching the show, we wanted to see Lightning so bad, just like be taken down a peg, and that duel definitely provided that. There's actually a moment in that duel where Revolver would have won, but Lightning over here had to pull a Tron or a Noah and be a little punk and use other people as hostages, and then Revolver, and then even after that, even after Lightning got around that, Revolver still managed to almost beat Lightning before Lightning had to force the match into a tie. And speaking of Lightning, the Lightning versus Spectre duel is officially the best villain versus villain duel in the series. And yes, that's over Merrick versus Bakura. It was just a very entertaining duel. And also, Spectre versus Wendy was another good one. Lou Maiden is actually against Bowman, even though she lost. It's actually a pretty significant duel because it's the first time in Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise history where a main female character has gone against a villain. I know some of you are going to bring up Merrick versus Mai, but Mai was not a main character, so that is kind of out of the window. And then she also dueled against Haru too and got a win. In terms of Soul Burner, he did rack up a lot of wins this season. And he sort of just like blazed through the cast, and yeah, he also had a new summoning mechanic, sort of introduced this season, the Reincarnation Summon, Reincarnation Link Summon. This season also introduced a lot of old archetypes coming back, such as the Xyz and Synchros and such, that I should have mentioned in my spoiler-free video, but whatever, it's here now. Yusaku actually has quite a few emotional moments this season, especially in the tail end when everyone's like dying, which is a huge shift because in the first season he just had this really plain stoic demeanor throughout the entire thing, even at the end of it for the most part. In this season, Yusaku especially has an emotional reaction in another really interesting duel just before the weight to it, which was Yusaku versus Kusanagi. And yeah, that ending was a very powerful character moment for Yusaku, sort of seeing him actually break down. Bowman is a character who is kind of the main antagonist for the season, or one of them. I still consider Lightning to be the overall main antagonist, because Bowman was created by Lightning and that sort of thing. And the first time Valiant Maker duels Bowman, he's sort of like this guy with no memory. The second time, which is sort of as the second time they duel, he sort of has this mistaken identity as Playmaker, where he thinks he's Playmaker, and it's really interesting. And then there's the third time, which ended in a draw, and then the fourth time was the season finale, where it was just like, that's the other thing I got to talk about. Bowman, buddy, would you quit spamming your ability? In his match against Soulburner, that's something he kept on spamming. Also, I should also mention that in that Soulburner duel, that part where Windy takes over Flame was just like pure I can see that being nightmare fuel for quite a few people, and sort of the manner that happened. Anyways, going back to uh, Bowman and his special ability. During the Playmaker duel, he just like kept on like spamming it, as well as it having this sort of ability, just like it um, take people's consciousness out and then sort of use that as fuel for itself. And then everyone on the outside of the duel just goes through so much effort to get rid of this thing, and when they finally do, they're all gone. But then it's all for nothing because Bowman's just like, oh, back up. It's sort of like that. It's sort of like Madara from Naruto, how everyone went through so much effort to get rid of the meteor, and then after all the effort, Madara's just like, have another one. That's pretty much what this was right here. A lot of crazy stuff. What else? There are a lot of. Oh yeah, going a little more into the themes. It's also revealed, as I mentioned earlier, throughout the simulation, that lightning alone is the reason why humans and Ignis cannot coexist. And then you also have the sort of arguments that Revolver makes, as Revolver's just like a savage this season. He dueled Windy, and the duels between Windy and Lightning pretty much play out the same, I would say, when they're faced against Revolver, as regardless of the outcome, Revolver's just like smacking them around and just flat out exposing them. The big twist was that Wendy actually killed his partner. If I remember correctly, he rammed a car into him, or he was in a car that like rammed into like the side of a wall or something. But still, it's pretty dark for him to outright like kill a child. So yeah, even though they did sort of pseudo redeem him by having it revealed that Lightning had actually overwritten him. Even though after that twist you really don't see anything from Wendy, even when I goes into the sort of into the inner core of Vrains, where all the Ignis are, and Wendy actually has no lines. In terms of duels, this is going to be very tough, but I will say I think my favorite duel was. That's a tough one. I'm going to go with Spectre versus Lightning. That duel was just really amazing. And then another duel I think is worth mentioning is Blood Shepherd versus Lightning. Even though we all knew what the outcome of that duel was going to be, it was still very interesting to see sort of see how Blood Shepherd would go out in a way, and just see him go all out and show the stakes for the rest of the cast on what this duel was going to be. Man, there's quite a bit I was actually talking about here. My favorite character this season was probably Aoi, Aoi Zaisen, and also another character I think would be worth mentioning that's interesting is Emma, who started out as sort of this in it for herself. Treasure seeker sort of thing, but at the end of the season she actually makes a sacrifice, and that was kind of cool for her to see. So she's definitely went over in Arc 2. Revolver, over the course of the season, no longer became an antagonist. He's sort of like, from his introduction, he kind of falls into the role of an anti-hero, and then you see him go into a sort of become an ally to Playmaker and company when it's all said and done. And yeah, that was a lot of spoiler talk. I also should mention the other uniqueness to Aqua. Her ability is pretty cool, which is she can tell when someone's lying. So Lightning had her captive. And then sort of the pairing between Blue Mane and Aqua was pretty cool. And then you have Oh yeah. And then you have Soulburner. He actually had quite a bit of development as a new character this season. We sort of get a lot of insight into him and his sort of relationship with him and Flame, which is his sickness, and sort of how his sickness helped him through his trauma. And there's a lot of entertaining moments between him and Yusaku. One thing I should mention is the first half of the arc is mostly in the real world. There's actually, I won't say mostly in the real world, but there's quite a bit of stuff that's outside of the Vrains that happens. But in the second half, it's pretty much all exclusively in the Vrains, which is very similar to how it happened in the first season. So, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff here. And I have a feeling I might be missing something, but I think I'll leave it at that for now. Also, tell me what your favorite moments were from this season. Let me know in the comments down below, and I will catch you in the next one. And as always, have a great day.